When Seneca wrote these words, he understood, "A great mind is always in repose, and troubles disturb it not. For he who is troubled gives power to his tormentors." Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Chapter 1. The Silent Blade. The silent blade, your resolve, your very will, is under attack. They don't need a dagger if they can bleed you dry. Learn to seal the cracks. Before you are but an empty husk. Imagine your life force as a reservoir, a deep well of power. Most people leave it unchecked, riddled with invisible cracks, constantly draining. 2,000 years ago, Cesare Borgia understood what most still refuse to see. The greatest betrayals aren't just stabs in the back, but strategic siphons designed to empty your resolve. He knew that the moment you react, you hand them the bucket. This leakage, this constant bleeding of mental and emotional energy is your most critical vulnerability. Every slight, every broken promise, every whispered lie they tell about you chips away at your focus. They aim to destabilize you, to make you predictable, to force your hand. They tell you confrontation is strength. This is a lie. They tell you clarity requires immediate discussion. That is a trap. They want you to speak, to lash out, to demand answers. They crave your emotional outburst because it confirms their power over you. Your immediate reaction to betrayal is a predictable response, a program they've installed in your mind. It's an open declaration of where your energy is focused, a map to your weaknesses, a signpost to your anger. When you speak in the heat of the moment, you are broadcasting your intentions, giving them ammunition. Watch what happens when you confront them directly. They will deny, they will deflect, they will project their own guilt onto you, turning your valid anger into a demonstration of your instability. You will find yourself defending your feelings, explaining your boundaries, justifying your pain. Every time you explain yourself, you move from an offensive position to a defensive position. And the moment they know you need their understanding, they have power over you. They wait for your flinch, for the crack in your composure, because that is where they insert their hooks. Your pain becomes their tool. But there is a different way, a darker path to reclaiming your dominion. A strategy that renders their betrayal useless, turning their weapon against themselves. This is the power of the silent blade. This is the silence trap. Here's how you wield it. When betrayal hits, you say nothing. You show nothing. Your face remains impassive, your voice calm, your eyes unreadable. You absorb the blow not as a wound, but as information. You analyze the angle, the force, the intent. Your silence is a psychological weapon. It denies them the satisfaction of your reaction. They crave your emotional output. It validates their transgression, makes them feel powerful. When you deny them this fuel, their victory rings hollow. Silence creates a void, an unfeelable space in their mind. They expect fireworks, a storm of accusations. Instead, they get nothing. This lack of response becomes a torment, a question mark hanging over their head. What does your silence mean? What are you planning? The pressure shifts. Now, they are the ones guessing, the ones wondering about your next move. Their betrayal, meant to weaken you, now forces them into a state of uncertainty. They overthink, they become paranoid. They start looking for shadows you haven't even cast yet. If you announce your anger, people will rally around you for a moment, then forget. Your public outcry is a momentary release for you, but it gives them insight into your strategy. It tells them precisely what you will tolerate and where your breaking point lies. But if you quietly observe, without a single word, there's nothing for them to counter. There's no emotional outburst for them to dismiss. There's no public spectacle for them to spin. You retain all your power, all your options, all your strategic advantage. Marcus Aurelius wrote 2 millennia ago that you have power over your mind, not outside events. He understood that true strength comes from the internal fortress, not the battle waged in the external world. He knew the futility of reacting to the chaos others create. His philosophy taught that the only thing truly within your control is your perception and your response. When someone betrays you, they are acting from their own flawed nature. Your reaction to that nature is your choice, your last bastion of freedom. What he understood is that your silence is not inaction. It is a profound act of self-control. It is a refusal to grant them the satisfaction of your pain. It is a strategic move that keeps your cards hidden, forcing them to play blind. This is the art of the silent blade, letting the betrayal hang in the air, allowing it to fester in their own mind, while you calmly plot your next unseen maneuver. Your quiet observation is a promise of future consequences, far more terrifying than any immediate outburst. But there's another trap, another subtle leak they exploit, one that promises connection but delivers parasitic attachment. What is it? Chapter 2, Your Invisible Hand. Silence, your greatest weapon or your deepest grave. After betrayal, every word is a weakness, an arrow pointing to your heart. Let us learn to disarm them. The trap is your urge to speak, to explain, to demand answers. This need for connection, for closure, is exactly how they drain you. They engineered the betrayal, and they anticipate your emotional outburst. They bait you into revealing your wounds, into showing them exactly where to strike next, or how to escape consequences. Every word you utter after a betrayal is a gift of intelligence to your enemy. You broadcast your pain, your surprise, your strategic blind spots. You show them where their knife landed, how deep it went, and what parts of you are now exposed. This isn't a conversation. It's an interrogation where you voluntarily supply the answers they crave. They are not seeking reconciliation. They are observing your reaction. They want to know if their tactic worked, if you are broken, or if you are already plotting. Your emotional response gives them a precise reading on your internal state, your capacity for retaliation, and the exact limits of your tolerance. This information is invaluable to a manipulator. Think about a poker game. When someone bets big, a novice player often can't help but react. Their face tightens, their eyes dart, they breathe differently, they fold, or they go all in, and either way they reveal their hand. Your betrayer is waiting for that tell, waiting for you to flinch, waiting for you to tip your cards. Your immediate silence starves them of this crucial data. You become an unreadable cipher. You deny them the satisfaction of seeing your pain, the relief of knowing you're off balance, or the advantage of understanding your next move. This absence of information is a weapon in itself, a void they are forced to fill with their own anxieties. Here's how you operate with an invisible hand. You go silent, absolute, unwavering silence. You do not respond to their calls, their messages, their carefully crafted apologies, or their feigned confusion. You vanish from their emotional landscape, becoming a ghost in their system. This is not avoidance. It is strategic denial of intelligence. If you immediately confront them, you confirm their success. You validate their tactic. You give them a clear map of your emotional terrain, showing them every vulnerability, every exposed nerve. They will use this blueprint to refine their attacks, to justify their actions, or to paint you as the unstable one. But if you simply disappear, if you become an unreadable presence, there is no data. There is no reaction for them to analyze, no leverage for them to exploit, no emotional outburst to spin against you. They are left in the dark, forced to speculate, to doubt, and to fear what unseen forces might be moving against them. Louis XIV, the Sun King, understood the power of an impenetrable facade. He rarely explained his decisions to his courtiers, knowing that ambiguity bred deference and fear. He maintained an air of divine right, his silence a shield against questioning and a weapon of control. What he understood is that your power diminishes the moment you feel compelled to justify yourself or to show your wounds to those who have already proven themselves unworthy of your trust. They want to know if their knife went deep enough. They want to gauge your resolve. They want to see if you are broken or if you are plotting your counterattack. Your silence denies them these crucial insights, forcing them into a psychological vacuum. They are left to project their own anxieties, fears, and guilt onto your lack of response. Imagine a boxer who takes a hard punch and doesn't flinch. No grimace, no stumble, no change in expression. The opponent doesn't know if the punch landed, if it hurt, or if it was even felt. Your silence creates this same psychological uncertainty for your betrayer, leaving them to guess your capacity for retaliation, your true strength. Your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their actions back onto them, with no filter, no emotional buffer from your side. They are forced to confront the naked reality of what they did, unsoftened by your pain or your pleas. This internal confrontation is often far more punishing than any external argument you could present. Sun Tzu wrote that all warfare is based on deception. Your silence is the ultimate deception, concealing your plans, making your enemy believe what you want them to believe, or nothing at all. Deny them knowledge of your strength, your weakness, and your intentions, and you deny them the ability to counter your unseen moves. You force them to fight a shadow. This invisible hand of silence doesn't just protect your intelligence. It also subtly manipulates their perception. But there's another subtle tactic they use, a manipulative maneuver that turns your own desire for justice against you. What is it? Chapter 3, The Fearful Unknown. The unknown, a true weapon. When they betray you, they expect a predictable storm. Instead, give them a void. Let the silence be their deepest terror. The true weapon isn't the truth you hold, but the truth you withhold. It is the suffocating blanket of the unknown, the silent abyss that swallows their comfort. When they betray you, their mind expects a swift reaction. They anticipate your immediate rage, your tears, your public shaming, or a demand for immediate emotional answers. They prepare their intricate defenses, craft their convoluted lies, ready to counter your every accusation, your every predictable emotional outburst. But you give them nothing. You deny them the satisfaction of a swift response, the immediate relief of a direct confrontation, the easy out of your predictable anger. This calculated absence, this deep, unsettling quiet, is a void they cannot fill. It stretches, it expands, becoming an unbearable weight in their own mind, a constant nagging pressure on their conscience. Their own guilt, their own fear, their own deep-seated suspicion begins to boil, feeding on the silence like a relentless parasite. They project their darkest fears onto your unraidable composure, imagining consequences far worse than any you might deliver. Your unwavering calm becomes a stark, unforgiving mirror, reflecting their treachery back at them with chilling clarity. They watch you intently, expecting you to flinch, to break, to reveal the raw damage they inflicted, to give them a measure of their impact, but you do not. You simply observe, your gaze steady, your actions unchanged. You continue your routine, your demanding work, your disciplined life, as if their act of betrayal never even registered on your radar, as if they are utterly insignificant. This is where the true terror begins for them. Your silence isn't a void, it's a canvas onto which their guilty mind projects its darkest fears. They expected a reaction, an outburst, a confrontation, a scene. They prepared for your anger, your tears, your accusations. They rehearsed their lies, their excuses, their counterattacks. But you deny them the script. You deny them the script. You deny them the opportunity to control the narrative. They begin to question everything. Was it really a betrayal? Or did you know all along? Are you simply biding your time? Do you have a master plan in motion? Is this a trap you've set, baiting them into a deeper confession, a more egregious error? Their mind races, searching for clues in your unreadable face, in your calm demeanor, in your continued unwavering focus. They scan your social media, they listen to whispers, they watch your movements, desperate for any sign of your intent, any hint of the consequences you might unleash. What you've done is strip away their certainty, replacing it with a gnawing, corrosive doubt. They don't know if you're plotting vengeance, if you're simply cutting them out, or if you're just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This uncertainty is a psychological weapon far more potent than any verbal attack. It forces them to replay their actions, to reconsider their motives, to estimate the true cost of their foolishness. Every moment of your silence is a new weight on their chest, pressing down, suffocating their peace of mind. Think about a powerful king like Louis XIV, who mastered the art of courtly silence. He understood that an unreadable face, a calm gaze, and a deliberate lack of immediate reaction could sow more fear and obedience than any decree or outburst. When courtiers betrayed him, or simply crossed him, he wouldn't always roar. Sometimes he would simply narrow his eyes, offer no comment, and then proceed as if nothing had happened, leaving the offender to stew in their own anxious imagination, wondering if their head would roll tomorrow or next month or never, but always under the shadow of his silent judgment. What he understood is that the mind, left unchecked, will conjure punishments far more elaborate and terrifying than any ruler could devise. They would try to provoke you. They would drop hints, make veiled comments, or even attempt to apologize in a clumsy, transparent way, just to get a reaction, just to break your composure, just to get a read on you. Do not give them the satisfaction. Do not bite the bait. Their attempts are desperate acts of a cornered animal, seeking to understand the threat, to gauge its size, to find a weakness. Your continued silence, your unwavering discipline, your refusal to acknowledge their petty maneuvers only amplifies their fear. It confirms their worst suspicions. You are not playing by their rules. You are playing a deeper game. Watch what happens when you remain completely unfazed. They will escalate their internal panic. They will begin to see enemies where there are none, interpreting every casual glance, every overheard conversation, every delayed email as a part of your grand, silent scheme. The very air around them will thicken with their own self-generated paranoia. They become isolated, not by your actions, but by their own guilt, their own fear, their own twisted perception of reality. They start seeing your strength in your quiet, not your weakness. Your silence implies a confidence in your own position, a certainty that you hold all the cards, that you have a plan so effective it requires no announcement, no explanation, no justification. It suggests that their betrayal, while noted, is merely a minor inconvenience, easily addressed, almost beneath your direct attention. This is a devastating blow to their ego. They wanted to matter. They wanted their betrayal to sting. They wanted to inflict pain. But your silence says you are not important enough to provoke a response. Consider the ruthless efficiency of Cesare Borgia. He didn't always need to announce his intentions with fanfare. Sometimes a sudden, unexplained absence of a rival, a quiet shift in loyalties, or a simple, uncommunicated change in policy was enough to send shivers through his enemies. They knew his capability for swift, decisive action, and his silence, therefore, was interpreted not as inaction, but as the calm before the storm. What he understood is that the threat of what might be is often more potent than the reality of what is. The truly dangerous betrayer is the one who sees your silence as opportunity, not threat. They will move swiftly, believing they have gotten away clean, believing you are weak or unaware. This is exactly what you want. Allow them to overextend. Allow them to reveal their full hand. Allow them to dig their own grave, deeper and deeper, confident in their perceived victory. Your silence becomes the ultimate lure, drawing them into a position where their vulnerability is maximized, their defenses are down, and their arrogance is at its peak. This is when the true counterstrike, if you choose to deliver one, will be devastating. Your lack of emotional leakage is critical here. They are watching for any crack in your armor, any sign of pain, anger, or confusion. These are the tells they seek, the signals that confirm their impact and give them a measure of their power over you. But you offer none. Your emotional state remains a fortress, impenetrable and unyielding. You present a facade of absolute control, absolute self-possession, absolute indifference to their petty machinations. This unnerves them profoundly. They can't categorize you, they can't predict you, and what they can predict you, and what they can predict they fear. The more they talk, the more they justify, the more they explain, the more they expose their own fear and guilt. They are trying to fill the void of your silence with their own noise. Do not engage, let them speak, let them dig. Every word they utter is a confession, a self-incrimination, a revelation of their true character and their true intentions. You collect this data calmly, dispassionately, building your case, understanding their weaknesses, mapping their vulnerabilities, all while they believe they are distracting you, placating you, or even outsmarting you. Think of it like a hunter observing their prey. The hunter does not announce their presence. They do not shout warnings or explain their strategy. They remain still, silent, observing every movement, every pattern, every habit of their target. They gather intelligence without revealing their own intent. Your silence in the face of betrayal transforms you into that hunter. You become the predator, and they unwittingly become the prey, caught in the open, vulnerable, exposed by their own noisy anxiety. The silence also forces them to confront their own conscience, if they have one. Without your outrage to deflect onto, without your anger to justify their own actions against, they are left alone with their deed. The weight of their own treachery becomes unbearable. It gnaws at them from the inside, slowly, relentlessly, far more effectively than any external punishment you could devise. They become their own jailers, their own torturers, trapped in a cell of their own making, with only their guilt for company. This quiet, internal torment is the most brutal form of justice. It does not require your energy, your time, or your emotional investment. It is self-sustaining. It operates automatically, fueled by their own psychological weaknesses. You simply set the conditions for it to flourish by refusing to react, by refusing to give them the external conflict they crave to distract themselves from their internal decay. Your silence is not passive. It is an active, strategic deployment of psychological pressure designed to dismantle their composure from the inside out. And as their composure cracks, as their paranoia mounts, as they become increasingly desperate for a reaction, they will make mistakes. They will overplay their hand. They will reveal information they shouldn't. They will make irrational decisions. Your silence has created a vacuum, and their fear will rush in to fill it, pushing them towards self-destruction. This is the ultimate aim, to have them defeat themselves without you ever having to lift a finger, without you ever having to utter a single word of accusation. Their downfall becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, triggered by the profound terror of your unanswered judgment. But there's another insidious leak you must seal to truly master this silence. One that whispers justifications in your own ear, tempting you to break your resolve. What is it? Chapter 4. The Predator's Pause. The predator's pause, an unnatural act. When betrayed, the naive rush to explain. The wise, they observe the enemy, they choose silence, they prepare the ambush. The insidious leak is the primitive urge to explain. It is the deep-seated human need to defend your position, to clarify your intentions, to demand an apology from the one who wronged you. This impulse, while natural, is a catastrophic weakness when faced with betrayal. It makes you predictable, exposes your emotional raw nerve, and hands your enemy the very ammunition they need to dismantle you. They will bait you with false concern, with manufactured confusion, with feigned innocence. They want you to talk. They need you to talk. Every word you utter provides them data, reveals your strategy, and confirms their impact on your psyche. Your explanation is their intelligence report, delivered straight from your own mouth. When someone betrays you, your wiring screams for immediate confrontation. You imagine an epic speech, a righteous accusation that exposes their perfidy. You want to see their shame, to force them to acknowledge their misdeed. This craving for validation blinds you, turning you into an open book for any cunning adversary. But the true master of silence understands that the initial shock of betrayal is not a signal for action, but for observation. It is a moment to freeze, to recede, to become invisible. This is the predator's pause, a period of profound stillness that precedes the decisive strike. While they expect your roar, you offer only a vacuum. Think about the hunter in the wild. When the prey bolts, the predator does not immediately charge in a frenzy. It watches. It assesses the direction, the speed, the vulnerability. It reads the landscape, anticipating the next move. Your betrayal is merely the first tremor. The real data comes from the aftershocks. Here's how you wield this predator's pause. First, completely cut off all communication with the betrayer. No calls, no texts, no emails, no indirect messages through mutual contacts. Sever the connection cold. This creates an immediate void, a deafening silence that they did not anticipate, and it forces them to project their own fears into that empty space. Next, observe everything from a distance. Watch their social media, listen to the whispers, note their new alliances. Do not engage, simply collect. They will assume your silence means confusion or weakness, and in their arrogance, they will inevitably overplay their hand. They will reveal more about their true nature and their underlying motives than any direct confrontation ever could. This period of quiet observation is where you gather critical intelligence. You are not looking for an explanation from them. You are looking for their explanation offered to others, to themselves, or through their subsequent actions. You are mapping their network, understanding their resources, identifying their real loyalties. Their behavior will paint a far more accurate picture than any apology or defense. Consider the strategic brilliance of Queen Elizabeth I. Faced with constant conspiracies and betrayals from within her own court, she rarely acted on the first hint of disloyalty. She understood that a premature move only drove traitors deeper underground. Instead, she allowed plots to mature, observing who met with whom, listening to the spread of rumors, and waiting for undeniable evidence. What Queen Elizabeth I understood is that patience in the face of perceived weakness is a formidable weapon. She didn't make windows into men's souls by forcing confession. She allowed their own actions to shatter their facades. By remaining silent, she watched as conspirators incriminated themselves, creating an undeniable case for their downfall. While they are busy trying to figure out your silence, you are busy building your counter-strategy. Your lack of reaction denies them the satisfaction of their perceived victory and the feedback loop they crave. They are firing into a void, depleting their own energy and showing their true colors without ever touching you. This strategic silence allows you to detach emotionally from the immediate pain of betrayal. It shifts your focus from reactive anger to proactive calculation. Your energy is conserved, your mind remains clear, and your judgment becomes surgical. You transform from a victim to an architect of consequence. It teaches you to recognize the subtle tells, the unconscious gestures, the shifts in their circle. You are not seeking revenge, you are seeking understanding. You are dissecting the mechanics of their treachery, learning how they operate, and discovering the hidden vulnerabilities in their armor. Most people, when betrayed, become loud and theatrical. They burn bridges with passionate fury, announce their grievances to the world, and alienate potential allies. They demand justice on their terms, broadcasting their pain and making themselves appear fragile. This is the behavior of the weak, the easily manipulated. But if you quietly absorb the blow, If you refuse to offer them the spectacle they crave, there's nothing for them to exploit. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own guilt and paranoia back at them. They will stew in their own uncertainty, convinced you are planning something far more devastating than you actually are. This is the art of strategic withdrawal, not from the conflict, but from the emotional arena. You step back to gain perspective, to see the entire battlefield, not just the immediate skirmish. You understand that the initial betrayal is just one move in a longer game. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese swordmaster, preached the critical importance of observation in combat. He taught his students to watch their opponent's every move, their breathing, their balance, the flicker in their eyes, knowing that rushing in blindly was a path to certain defeat. Musashi wrote in the Book of Five Rings that one must see things from a broad perspective, the true nature of an opponent, their strengths and weaknesses, their entire fighting style is revealed not in their initial aggression, but in the subtle reactions that follow. Your silence allows you to see the opponent's empty spaces before you commit. Your quiet observation allows you to map out their character flaws, their psychological triggers, their biggest fears. You are learning their playbook, anticipating their next feint, and preparing to exploit their predictable patterns. The silence is not inaction, it is concentrated thought, focused intelligence gathering. The fools will try to pull you back into the drama, to provoke a response, to force you into a verbal battle where they believe they have an advantage. They will escalate, they will gossip, they will spread rumors. This is merely them flailing in the dark, desperate for a reaction that confirms their power. Remain unresponsive. Let their efforts bounce off your impenetrable silence. Each failed attempt to provoke you only exhausts their resources and reveals another facet of their desperation. They are digging their own grave, and you are simply watching them work. This is the ultimate psychological advantage. When your enemy does not understand your next move, or if you even have a next move, they become paralyzed by the unknown, consumed by speculation. Your silence is a blank canvas upon which they paint their own worst fears. By refusing to speak, you deny them the closure they subconsciously seek. You deny them the opportunity to frame the incident in their favor, to spin a narrative where they are justified. There is no counter-argument to silence, no rebuttal to an empty space. This quiet, calculated withdrawal is not an act of surrender. It is the ultimate preparation for war. It is the careful drawing back of the bowstring, the precise aiming of the weapon before the arrow is released with devastating accuracy. Your silence is merely the calm before the storm. But this profound stillness, this strategic withdrawal, is only half the battle. There is a deep psychological current that runs beneath betrayal, one that can corrupt your own resolve if left unchecked. What is it? Chapter 5. The Final Command. The betrayer's prize, your reaction. Can you withstand the impulse to defend, to justify? This is the final command, silence. The current is your instinct to explain, to justify, to demand an answer. It is the primitive impulse to correct the record, to salvage your reputation, to scream your truth into the void. This impulse is the betrayer's true target. They want your reaction, your visible pain, your desperate need for validation. Each word you utter in defense or accusation is a drop of blood from your own veins, empowering them, validating their attack. They wait for you to flinch, for you to break character. This is the ultimate test of your self-mastery. Can you withstand the internal pressure to engage, to argue, to prove? Can you absorb the blow, let it land, and offer nothing back? Most cannot. They crumble under the weight of injustice, believing that silence implies guilt or weakness. They confuse inaction with surrender. In reality, your stillness is the most calculated and devastating form of action. It is the refusal to play their game, a complete rejection of their terms. They want to draw you into the mud. You refuse to get dirty. Silence, in its purest form, is not merely the absence of sound, it is the absence of information, the absence of predictable behavior. This weapon denies your enemies the fuel they crave. It forces them to operate in the dark, without a map, without a target. They expect a confrontation, a public outcry, a desperate plea for justice. When they receive none of these, their own carefully constructed lies begin to unravel. They are left with nothing but their own echo. This self-inflicted confusion is a powerful disabler. Think about the most potent figures in history. Did they squander their energy on petty arguments and public explanations? Cardinal Richelieu, the architect of French power, rarely needed to justify his actions or engage in public debate with his adversaries. What he understood is that true authority does not explain itself. It simply acts. Its actions speak with an undeniable force. His enemies were left guessing, reacting to a power they could not fully grasp or anticipate, because his true intentions were cloaked in an impenetrable silence. He controlled the flow of information by releasing none. Your silence becomes a void, into which they project their own fears and insecurities. They will try to fill it with accusations, rumors, and half-truths. Let them. Every word they speak without your response only exposes their own desperation, their own need to control the narrative. You give them nothing. No emotion, no defense, no counter-argument, just a cold, empty space where they expected a fight. This empty space strips them of their power. It makes their attack seem baseless, frantic, without an anchor point. This is where the true psychological warfare begins. While they are busy screaming into the void, you are busy, you are observing, you are learning, you are preparing. Every single move they make, every desperate attempt to draw you out, reveals their strategy, their weaknesses, their true allegiances. You collect data, you gather intelligence, you refine your counterattack. Your withdrawal is not a retreat, it is a strategic repositioning. It allows you to see the battlefield from a distance, to identify the true scope of the betrayal and the players involved. It gives you the time to rebuild, to fortify your defenses, and to gather your resources. While they celebrate a hollow victory over your perceived absence, you are becoming stronger, more cunning, more dangerous. They mistake your stillness for surrender. This is their fatal error. This is the path of the strategist, not the reactive fool. This is the path of those who understand that power is never given, it is taken, often in silence, from those who do not know how to hold it. You deny them the satisfaction of your downfall. You deny them the drama they crave. You become an enigma, a problem they cannot solve, because you refuse to play by their rules. Your non-engagement is a refusal to validate their attack. It leaves them fighting against air. They will try to bait you. They will send messengers. They will spread rumors designed to provoke a reaction. Recognize these as desperate attempts to regain control, to force you back into their reactive game. Your response remains the same: nothing. Absolute, unwavering silence. Let the fire burn itself out. Let their accusations echo in empty rooms. They will exhaust themselves in their futility. What happens when you refuse to engage? The energy they poured into attacking you dissipates. The alliances they formed against you fracture under the weight of their own paranoia and the lack of a common enemy to rally against. They turn on each other. Their internal conflicts, once overshadowed by their focus on you, now erupt, consuming them from within. This is the weaponization of their own chaotic nature. This is the ultimate weapon, the power to deny them your reaction. You do not just withhold words, you withhold your very essence, your emotional energy, your attention. You become a black hole to their desperate attempts at manipulation. Nothing leaks, nothing drains. Everything compounds within you, transforming into an unbreakable will. This inner fortress makes you invincible to their projections and their petty attacks. When you do decide to act, it will not be in a fit of rage or a moment of weakness. It will be precise, it will be devastating, it will be unexpected. Understood that a prince must appear virtuous, but be ready to act without scruple when necessary, for the preservation of power. He knew that the opportune moment for action comes not from emotional impulse, but from cold, hard calculation made when the opponent is least prepared. Your silence has ensured their unpreparedness. Your silence has built your strength. It has exposed their weakness. Now, the time for observation ends, and the time for observation ends, and the time for surgical precision begins. You do not seek revenge. You seek restoration of order, of your power, of your undisputed position. You do not fight. You dismantle. You do not argue. You obliterate the ground upon which they stand. This is not a battle of words, but a war of wills, which you have already won through your absolute control. Let them underestimate your quietude. Let them mistake your stillness for apathy. This is their greatest error, their most profound miscalculation. The silent observer is the most dangerous player on the board, for they see every move, anticipate every flaw, and strike when the conditions are perfect. This is the final command. When faced with betrayal, you will not speak. You will not explain. You will not react. You will recede into the shadows, observing, learning, fortifying your resolve. You will deny your betrayers the satisfaction of your pain and the fuel of your words. You will become an unyielding fortress, an impenetrable enigma. Your silence becomes an iron wall. Let your silence be your armor. Let it be your sword. Let it be the chilling promise of a reckoning they will never see coming. Let them drown in the echoes of their own words, while you quietly, meticulously, reclaim everything they thought they had taken. Your existence becomes their constant, gnawing doubt, a monument to their own folly. This is the ultimate victory.